Good evening and welcome to the Kent City Council meeting for July 20th, 2021. I'm sorry, it's hard to believe that we are already almost all the way through July. Welcome tonight. Want to let everyone know that this meeting is being broadcast live on Kent TV 21 as well as Facebook and our YouTube channel. Also an option to call in and listen to the meeting. With that, we've called the meeting to order. If everyone could rise and please join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. With that, we are going to move on to item number 2, which is roll call. Kim, could you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Ralph?
Here.
Council President Troutner?
Here.
Councilmember Boyce?
Here.
Councilmember Fincher?
Here.
Councilmember Kaur?
Here.
Councilmember Larmer?
Here.
Councilmember Michaud?
Here.
Councilmember Thomas?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Kim. Item number 3 is agenda approval. I'm guessing we've got a change to the agenda this evening. Derek?
Yes, we do, Madam Mayor. Staff recommends the council add an item 11A, an executive session to review the performance of a public employee.
All right, thank you so much. With that addition, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the agenda with those changes.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much. Item number 4, public communications. The first item under public communications is public recognition, and I want to start out with a huge congratulations to Blue Origin. Kent-based company. This morning they sent humans into space. The oldest astronaut, the youngest astronaut, the richest astronaut, and his family member, his brother. The Kent-based team that has gotten Blue Origin to this point, I could not have been prouder. On the live broadcast starting about 5 o'clock this morning, there was a time when they cut away to the building here in Kent, talked about the headquarters for Blue Origin being in Kent. I will tell you, I paused it, I rewound it, I listened to it again, and I could not have had more pride for the work that is being done in the Kent Valley. Blue Origin's an amazing company, and they're what happened today was historic. They are working to continue these types of events far into the future. We're so excited. And they're also, I think a lot of people maybe don't know, they're an amazing partner to the community. They have a STEM program that they fund for our kids to grow up and be rocket scientists and machinists and engineers and everything in between. So just a huge, huge round of applause and congratulations to the Blue Origin team that is based right here in Kent. So amazing morning. Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I, too, would express the same thoughts that you did. But one of the things that I would add is that when they were getting assembled in that top of the rocket with the windows in it, we touched those. When we toured the Blue Origin plant down here, only a couple of miles, there it was, right there. And I'm telling you, when I saw it, I was the same way. A lot of pride just built up inside me, and it was awesome. Thank you, Mayor.
Absolutely. Fantastic morning for both Blue Origin and the City of Kent. All right, we are going to move on to the next item, which will also be a fantastic day in the City of Kent, and that is a proclamation for National Night Out. Joining us to accept the proclamation, our community education team, Stacy Judd and Sarah Wood. I'm going to read the proclamation, and then if you guys want to give us a few words about National Night Out, that would be fantastic. So the proclamation says, whereas the National Association of Town Watch is sponsoring a unique nationwide crime and drug prevention program on August 3rd, 2021, called National Night Out, and whereas the City of Kent plays a vital role in assisting our police department through joint crime and drug prevention efforts across the city and is supporting National Night Out locally, And whereas it is important to all residents of the City of Kent that they know the value of crime prevention programs and the impact that citizen participation can have on reducing crime and creating a safe and vibrant community. Whereas National Night Out provides an opportunity for the community to come together as neighbors for an evening of celebration and fun that will strengthen our bonds and unify us in our goal of creating a strong community. Now, therefore, I, Dana Ralph, Mayor of Kent, do hereby proclaim August 3rd, 2021 as National Night Out in Kent, Washington, and encourage all citizens, neighborhoods, and communities to participate in the city's crime prevention efforts to more tightly weave the fabric of the community and strengthen community spirit.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor and council members, for having us and for the proclamation. It's nice to hear it again after missing last year. So we're very excited to have it happening again. For those that don't know, National Night Out is obviously national, and it encourages neighbors to get together, to get to know each other. We like to compare it to like an old-fashioned community picnic. And that's a huge part of crime prevention, is knowing your neighbors, and it kind of leads you to look out for your neighbors even more, opens up communication, their kids, their pets, and then you feel more connected to your neighbors and your community. So it's a great opportunity for everybody to get back out there and talk again and do whatever it is, when we send out the communication, whatever it is that makes you feel comfortable within your neighborhood. Please do it, but we look forward to seeing everybody. We're continuing to have visiting teams again from the mayor and council, the police department, the fire department, again, all throughout the city. So we're really looking forward to it.
Yes. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you again for having us here this evening. We have around 30 events that are already registered with the City of Kent for National Night Out events. So those are neighborhoods that are putting on their potlucks, picnics, barbecues, ice cream socials, or just hanging out in lawn chairs in their yard. It's really a variety, again, what Stacy said, whatever works for the neighborhood, we encourage everyone to do. So those neighborhoods that are out there and that have been planning, that have not registered with us yet, we are taking registrations until next Wednesday, the 28th. Neighborhoods can go online to kentwa.gov/NNO. There's our website there. It gives you tips and tricks on how to have an event, and also you can register online right there. And it's important that you register with us, because then we can send you our visitors and then also give you bags of swag with cool giveaways from Kent. You get a banner, balloons, whatever you can do to, whatever we can help you with to get your event up and running and cool. So we're really excited to be back again.
All right. Thank you very much. Definitely looking forward to National Night Out. Councilmember Fincher.
I was just going to add that this is one of my favorite events for the whole year, and I think the same for a number of the other council members too. So thank you for all the work you guys do by organizing, pairing everybody up, getting who goes where, when. So I am looking forward to it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And as a reminder, because of National Night Out and the primary election, we will have our council meeting at 5 p.m. that evening. So it works out very well that the two things align, and it allows council members and city staff to get out and get into the neighborhoods. So looking forward to that very much. All right. Next item is community events. Council President Troutner, do you have community events?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have several events coming up, including our concert series that will continue throughout the summer. Tomorrow at 12 p.m. at Morro Meadows Park, we have Eduardo Mendonca and Show Brazil, which is a rockin' show with dance, drum parades, and a carnival, or carnival type dancing. So sounds like a really great fun time for families, including children. Tomorrow night, we have at 6 p.m. Darren Matamati at Kent Station. And if you have not seen him before, he is amazing. He's a saxophonist, and he's originally from Kent. So again, Kent Station, 6 p.m. tomorrow. Thursday from 7 to 8:30 at Lake Meridian, we have a Grateful Dead tribute band called Grateful. So lots of great opportunities for families and people to get out and just enjoy free events around the city. A reminder that the Kent Market is at Kent Station tomorrow from 4 to 8:30, so please be sure to check that out. And then Tuesday, July 27th, which is next Tuesday, we have Coffee with the Chief at Naya's Cafe. So if you can join us, I believe is that at 8 p.m.? Or I'm sorry, 8 a.m.? 8 a.m. at Naya's. So hopefully we'll see some of you there. And that is all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Any other community events from council? All right, I'm not seeing any. Lots of good things happening, and as we reopen, great ways for the community to gather and get out and about. Our next item on the agenda is public safety report, and joining us is Chief Padilla.
All right, good evening. Kim, I have control of the clicker, or are you doing that for me? I have it. Okay, this ought to be fun. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, it's my pleasure to be back in person to give you this month's public safety report. It is good to see all of you in person, and I've got a lot to cover, so we're going to get right into it, and that way we can allow for some questions. I think some of the things I'm going to talk about will spark some questions for sure. So first up, let's see. We'll get right into it. Good news, we were able to hire and put to work another corrections officer. This is Corrections Officer Fabiano Landi. He comes to us by way of Sao Paulo, Brazil. He describes himself as the father of 3 beautiful princesses. That's his words there. Before working here, he got his education in electrical engineering, and he was a small business owner in Oregon for a while in the ice cream industry. He owned a handful of ice cream shops. Back in 2014, he and his wife decided to come here and pursue the American dream, and that led into their entrepreneurship. And then till 2019, where he said that he wanted to be a corrections officer, and so that's what he transitioned to here. He is, let's see here, we've got everything on that. Yeah, so he started actually a couple months ago. There's a little bit of a lag from when they go to the basic academy to when they get to work, but he is on full solo status now, and he's doing the job there in the jail. So welcome to Fabio Landi. Background on him, he is speaks Spanish. He has Spanish heritage, although I think in Brazil the national language is Portuguese. So go figure. Next up, I wanted to take a moment to thank one of our community members that helped one of our officers during kind of a tense situation. Asset Protection Manager Michael Hafner has earned the Chief Citizen Commendation Award. And I'll describe what happened here, but basically that award is given to those in the community that either put themselves in harm's way or take action to assist law enforcement, particularly Kent, fire, or they do something to the betterment of the community that's notable. And so we've put him in. Our awards committee has recommended, and we bestowed the award on him. He works at the Fred Meyer that's up on the West Hill. So what happened? Our officers responded to shoplifting report, theft at the store, and 2 of our officers responded. They contacted 2 of the suspects in the parking lot, or attempted to, and those suspects ran. That led to a little bit of a foot pursuit. One of the subjects was resisting heavily, was combative, and one of our officers was not, initially, Officer Fisher was not getting him under control right away, so the struggle was on. Mr. Hafner saw what was going on, stepped in, assisted with holding down the suspect and getting him into custody, and really kept that situation from escalating to where people were going to get hurt, right? So escalation of force and whatnot. So he witnessed what happened, quickly intervened, and he's helped us with prosecution on that. Mr. Hafner is being commended for his intervention, which was critical to getting the combative and resistive subject quickly and safely placed under arrest. His decisiveness and courage prevented prolonged struggle from occurring and helped to ensure Officer Fisher's safety. So for that, we were very pleased to present him with the commendation. So I went backwards. That's not what I want to do. All right, that gentleman back there, Mr. Scott Rankin, formerly known as Sergeant Scott Rankin, earned a promotion here recently along with Officer Eaton, who is now Sergeant Corey Eaton. Scott, as many as a familiar face to, I'm sure all of you, being here the last 23 years, have served in a multitude of functions, patrol, SWAT, FTO. Most notably, probably for interactions with you, he was overseeing our special operations unit. So he was on point for our homeless engagement efforts. All around, he's from Kent. He's a KM grad. This is his city, more than just in work. Yes, so KM's finest. And had other points that were notable in his career. He was an academy instructor for years, and he was on our SWAT team for years. So has earned his way up. I trust him implicitly. He has a heart to serve and care for our community, and so very deserving of the promotion, which occurred last week. And also up, and we're going to start doing these swearing-ins back now that we're back in person. This is probably the last of the batch that we did online. Sergeant Corey Eaton. Corey has spent most of his career in patrol. His notable works is as field training officer and regional trainer for the Valley SWAT team. So he helps us train all the officers in the region in the special weapons and tactics. He has done exceptional. He's a senior commander. He came out #1 in our crucible, that is our promotion selection process. Kind of a quick review on that. There's a written examination. There's an exhaustive peer review where we sit in a room for an entire day and we look at everything they've done in the last 2 years. We rate them in 5 categories. It's pretty direct. It's pretty brutal, to be honest, in terms of the critique. He had overwhelming support from everyone in the room, very well respected. Once he passed that, then he went on to the last phase, which is the assessment center, and that is an all-day long battery of exercises, role-playing, critical incidents, impromptu interviews. They can walk from a press conference one moment to an active shooter scenario the next in that day of exercises. And Corey came out #1 and was very deserving of the promotion. I'm looking to see how his leadership style, his mentorship, his coaching, his ingraining of our culture of caring and serving the community comes out in the next few years as he develops as a leader. So very proud to promote him. Another good, sticking with the good theme. It's going to turn a little bit later, so we'll stick with the good theme here. Our jail just knocked it out of the park again. We had our accreditation process last month, and they came through the on-site inspection without any deficiencies, met standards or exceed standards in all categories, over 100 standards. For the community's edification, accreditation is a process that's done through the Sheriff's and Police Chiefs Association. That means we open ourselves up for third-party critique from subject matter experts across the state and in the nation. Every 3 years, they come in and they look at everything we do. They spend hours poring over our records, ensuring we do everything within standard. And it really is a testament to our willingness to always want to do better and adhere to the best possible training, development, progression, and changes in the way that we should do business. So credit to Assistant Chief Kasner, Commander Diane McCuistion, and Sergeant Mike Armstrong. They led our team through the accreditation process, and I will say that when I led the accreditation, I didn't ever come through with a clean inspection ever. So that is a huge feat. Very proud of that. One more footnote on that is we still are one of 3 organizations in the state, the entire state, that has dual accreditation, both in our corrections and in our law enforcement operations. So high marks there for the team. Very proud of that. 4th of July. Said it was going to turn. That's just kidding. 4th of July. So I promised to come back with the data analysis on what the night looked like and some of the highlights for that, and so here we are. The good news is that we did see a small decrease in our numbers from 2020, and that was 6.5% less 911 calls. I'll give you a moment to take a look at the years going back to 2017. I apologize, I didn't grab numbers pre-2017. 2017 is notable because that was the first year that the ban took effect, okay? So back then, we were looking at 430 calls, 911 calls. We had a significant dive in 2018, a little bit better in 19, and then in 2020, we took a turn. And I would like to be able to quantify that for you. I can just speculate that maybe it had something to do with the lack of public shows, okay? Would be my guess, and that is just purely a guess. I will say, and then continuing on with the lack of public shows this year, our numbers are still high there, although better than last year. So there's where they are. I do want to note that those hundreds of calls are in addition to all the other 911 calls we get. So it's not total. These are on top of all the emergency calls we have during this time. So there are the numbers. Our approach, I'm very frankly been very straight with this. We did not go out and try to make a bunch of arrests. We did not go out and try to force a lot of tickets on people. We went out, we asked for voluntary compliance, we talked to people. Mayor Ralph and I were out all night long. In fact, we've been out 2017, 18, 19, 20, and 21. And yes, me, who hasn't done real police work in a while, was going to community members and asking them to comply with the law and shut down their fireworks. And there was a lot. I don't want to present the information as if there weren't fireworks going off. There were hundreds of fireworks going off, obviously. But to that end, we did what we could. We answered every call we could. Another way to look at the data, just something interesting that was part of the information I received, that represents there the calls to 911 per hour. 00 on the left bottom there represents midnight, and 23 represents 2300 military time for 11 p.m. So during most of the time in the multiple days that we track the calls, we get very few calls during the day, pretty typical. Then each afternoon, right at 4, we start to see an uptick, escalating all the way up to its high point right about 9, and then starting to taper off at 11. Over 90% of our calls to 911 for fireworks complaints come in between 9 and 11. It's just super intense at that time. That and whenever we have a Seahawks game, that's the other anomaly, right? So I'll pause there for questions on the fireworks. Okay, getting off easy today. Hiring and retention. Let me bring up my notes for this here. So hiring and retention. I want to provide council and the community with the status update, and I'm just going to be very straightforward. The news is not good. We are experiencing a significant decrease in the number of applicants that are coming in, and I know you can't really make that out very well. It's a little blurry. I apologize for that. Those bars represent the number of candidates that apply per quarter going back to 2018. And if you see, if you were to draw a trend line across the bars there, you see a pretty constant number, somewhere around 120 to 125 candidates a year. And we have a spike right in June of 2020. You know, we had nearly 250 candidates come in. We were working really hard. If you think back to June of 2020, we had one vacancy open. We had caught up in our staffing and we closed the gap. Then the last 4 quarters came and some attrition numbers came in. If you look at starting in third quarter of 2020, the numbers dived down to closer to 60, 65 candidates a quarter applying for the City of Kent Police Department. And that's been consistent now for 4 quarters in a row. So I can confirm with you that is a trend and it's continuing. So look at our numbers, kind of break down on what this represents for us. The same numbers there, just put in a different way. The background investigations are a key metric that we look at. There are times where we're going through over 100 candidates to find one suitable person to take the background, depending on the pool, right? So if you look at the number of candidates, say in 2019, which is the highest of the 4-year set, didn't necessarily result in the most officers hired. And so we do everything we can. As I've chronicled before, we're working very hard to remove any equity barriers. We're rethinking some of the traditional standards that would exclude candidates from the past. We've come around and progressed, and we're doing very well. But if you look at that bottom row there, we have 152 candidates as of date. That is less than half of the lowest previous 3 years. Okay, and it's not just Kent. So we're trending 37% below last year and 52% below 2019.
Chief Councilmember Thomas has a question.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In regards to like retention and things, do you do some exit interviews with your officers? And what do you think's number 1, 2, as far as the problem? I mean, if there's a problem. I mean, it's not just a fact of retiring, for example, they're leaving.
Right. If you can indulge me, council member, I actually have that coming up in a.
I will wait.
All right. Thank you, sir. More on this slide real quick. I think it's important to draw the amount of resources that go into hiring one candidate. An entry-level background on average is 55 hours of investigative work. There's lots of improvements in the law requiring universal standards on background checks, and particularly when you hire lateral officers. And we're, in the city of Kent, we're sitting back going, it's about time everybody got to where we are. We put in a detective assigned. We will travel to their locations. We will talk to their ex-wives. We will talk to their neighbors. We'll talk to their employees. We really dig. They go through 2 different types of truth verification. They go through rigorous psychological exams, written testing, physical testing, you name it. And we're very, we have very high standards. And so that's where the struggle really comes in, that to get one to screen out a candidate can take us 50 hours of work to find out they're not the right fit for Kent. So it's a lot of investment. In 2019, I doubled the staffing size of our recruiting, even though that painfully hurt me in terms of our patrol staffing, because that's where I had to take it from. But the investment was so that we could get caught up. It worked for 1 month, and we're behind again, okay? So it's current staffing levels, and I'm almost there, Councilmember Thomas, I promise. We are currently hired up at 153, minus those that are on injury leave, medical, at the academy, or in field training, FTOs, field training officers. Total allotted staff is 160. You've heard me ring the bell multiple times over multiple years. We should have been at 195 several years ago to be within our comparable cities of same size. Our current staffing per capita per 1,000 is 1.15. The state average actually fell. If you look at the latest WASPIC report, it fell to 1.19, down from 1.24 in average. So that's everybody. That's everybody from the 3-person department up to Seattle, okay? Nationwide, the average is 2.4 officers per 1,000. So we're not even close. And that's from the FBI Police Employee Data Report 2019. Washington State ranks 51st, dead last. And they throw in, for whatever reason, amongst the states, they throw in District of Columbia, and we are behind District of Columbia by a lot. Actually, they're #1 in the country. They have more staffing than anybody else. Okay? So in a state that is dead last in the nation, the City of Kent Police Department ranks near the bottom of that state in per capita staffing.
Chief, I have a couple of questions. Councilmember Kaur, followed by Councilmember Thomas.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, my question is about your previous slide, actually.
Okay.
You mentioned that we're working on removing barriers for candidates. Are you able to talk about what kind of?
Yeah, so we talked about this a little bit before, and what we have done is we've looked at some of the non-traditional things, such as grooming standards, tattoos. We looked at instances of marijuana use, so we were following industry standard traditional lines, and we've moved those away. One of the more effective things, and one of the bright spots in this report is we are seeing an uptick in our diverse candidates. We're overall decreased number of candidates coming in, but the percentage of diversity is going up. One of the biggest things is that we've reached out and connected with our community faith-based group. Commander Hollis is doing a fantastic job networking, and we're starting to see a lot of referrals there. The other thing that's really big for us is our social media. They really like the way that we celebrate what we do here, how we celebrate our community through that is a constant thing that people come in the door are referring to, and they love our diversity. We have been very proud of the fact that we are one of the 10th most diverse cities in the country, and our diverse candidates are really appreciating that. So we're recruiting, we're at fairs, we're doing all the traditional things, but the main thing is we re-looked at our barriers. The other thing we did was, by doubling my background investigators, we are able to get to more candidates cross-section. And I don't mean this as a negative statement. A lot of our diversity is somewhat in the mid-range of the scores. And if we don't have background investigators to get through the numbers and go through the ones that are not suitable candidates, we sometimes don't get to our diverse candidates. And so that's been a big change. We are seeing that's paying off. Commander Grove has retweaked the way we get through the list and how quickly we get through the list. So the diversity thing has been a priority, and I intend to be able to report to you the numbers going up next year.
Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Chief, can you go down? Oh no, that's the one I want.
What?
current staffing 1.15 officers per 1,000. Now, our population here in Kent is just a hair under the population of Bellevue, and I think you might have that Bellevue statistic as well, what they're doing per 1,000.
I haven't checked in probably a year, but they're close to 200 officers is what I could tell you.
That's what I was thinking.
And probably half the violent crime rate that we have here in Kent.
Thank you.
Last point on that is, with all of that that's going on, Kent still remains near the highest amount of emergency calls per officer handled every day. Okay?
Chief, one more question. Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. How does our compensation compare to surrounding cities?
Great question. We are in the middle of contract negotiations, so I will say that where we find ourselves is generally competitive, and we generally are in the middle to upper range. Currently, we are near the bottom of some of our neighboring cities in particular, and that is a matter of, for whatever the reason is in the cycle of contracts, Kent's always one of the first to settle their contract. We're usually a year or two before the other cities. So what that means is we settled our contract 3 years ago, and everybody else is leapfrogged in front of us. I will say that it will be a very interesting process. I've been in numerous contract negotiations, and the market is changing for police officers. There's no disputing that.
Okay. Councilmember Larmer.
Thank you. Chief, there's a lot of talk on the national scale on more co-response models and more mental health response. How do you see that working into the overall numbers of officers? I'm assuming right now at this point that those, those staff with those specialties are not accounted for here. How do you see that in the future?
So we do have, and it's not nearly as robust as we need. We do have the current co-respondent model. They are immediately overwhelmed. I could quadruple that service and they would still be underwater in terms of being able to meet all the demand, right? So let's start there with the reality of we need a lot more of that, and we're all on board. What I think you will see is that it'll be representative and less calls for officers for those type of services, right? But going back to the emergency and the priority 1 calls, those aren't impacted by the co-responder model type of calls. And those are the ones, when we get a priority 1 type of call, it can be anywhere from 6 to a dozen officers needed to resolve that. And so during those calls, that's 6 to a dozen officers or so, I'm just throwing out numbers there, that are tied up. So calculating a work study and staffing study is very complicated with the nuances, and we have to staff for the worst case scenario. We just have to. And so I very much appreciate your question. I don't see, to be straight with you, I don't see the co-responder model reducing the need of the number of officers in Kent, because we are so far under the number we need to start off with.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you once again, Madam Mayor. So I guess why I brought up the exit interview, and I'm looking at the number 2 bullet there, 13 officers are known to be voluntarily leaving the state. So they're not just quitting. They're leaving our state, not just our city, our state. Why is that? Do you have any kind of response? Oh, look at you smile.
Close. I'm so close.
I lead these.
Close. Here, let me give you a preview. I went the wrong.
That's you?
Yeah, don't look at that one.
You're leaving?
I got a whole slide on it. Let me jump to this, Councilmember. You've been so patient. Let me go to that, and we'll go back to the other slides, okay? So this isn't Chief Padilla's, this isn't Raf Padilla's talk. These are those exit interviews. I've had moments recently where I've been somewhat depressed because I'm having these exit interviews. I've had 6 in the last 2 weeks, okay? And it's a combination of early retirements, some scheduled retirements, and really good officers who just decided that they're going to change locations. And it really comes down to the overarching theme of they have a better opportunity for their families and their careers outside of Washington State. And I don't know how to say it any different than that. That's truly what it's coming down to. They've been very clear. This isn't about how the city's treated them or the department. They love it here. They just have to look down the road and weigh the options and where the opportunities are for their families. And they've made a choice, and I can't blame them for that. I left Hawaii in 1997 to come here for a better opportunity for my family. So it would be really tough for me to stand and be begrudging someone for doing the same. The question that I hope that we will focus on in this state is, what are we going to do to make it so that this is the place that people want to move their families to again, if you're in law enforcement? That's really what I think the conversation should look at. So to your question, Councilmember Thomas, one of the major things right out of the gate, our officers are very frustrated. The pandemic was a huge breaking point for them because it was a shutdown of the criminal justice system, and they were repeatedly arresting people who were not going anywhere. Not going to jail, not going away, not going anywhere. So that's become a huge theme with the officers, is they want to have impact. They want to be successful in what they're doing. And it seems like they're on this ever-going loop of doing the same thing over and over again. Another thing that they tell me is they didn't get in this profession to not help people and to not have an impact on stopping criminals. That's what they want to do. And that's very difficult in these days, and it's getting tougher. The new state laws, and again, we are on board. I think we are going to do more than what you will see most jurisdictions do in finding solutions and making these laws work for our community. But that said, there is no way to get out of the fact that the laws discourage preventative community policing and exposes officers to unreasonable risk. It really does. There are so many safeguards in the criminal justice system for judges and prosecutors and whatnot. There are zero. And the officers are in a reality where good faith, trying to do their job, may find themselves still looking at prosecution because that's the process now. And it's really tough. And they don't have to face that in other states, quite frankly. Okay? And you said it. They're quality people, Councilmember Thomas. If they're a Kent police officer, they're an exceptional person, and they've been trained to a degree where they can literally go and work anywhere in this country. Their certifications and their credentials here are as high as they come, and it's easy for them to move to the other state. That's what they're telling me. So,
follow up, if I may. Yes. Thank you. So we're not necessarily looking at pay as much as the frustration, would you say, with especially, I'm going to be bold here. I have no problem, I'm looking at this nationwide too, not just Kent, but nationwide. It's not the police that I find a problem as much as the court system, which you've just mentioned. And that's got to be part of the frustration. You do a good job, you make a good arrest, you have good facts, figures, whatever, and it's dismissed, or some other things. I just don't understand sometimes. I see things going on in L.A., and I'm not trying to compare us to L.A., but that's really offensive to me when I see what's going on. They're letting bad people out on the streets. Some of them don't see a day of jail. And I'm frustrated as a citizen in our great country to see this day after day. I listen to the news, different channels, and it's the same thing. I'm sorry, but now you see some of my frustration. But when I see 13 officers are volunteering to leave out of state, that really bothers me. You can't go to Chicago. I mean, that'd be terrible. 8 officers retiring. That's normal, I would think. I mean, it's a little bit more than high, but yeah, I mean, if you love your job, you're going to stay. You know, My wife could have retired 8 years ago. She stayed until she was 72 years old because she loves the job. So I feel bad for you. You're the chief, and I feel bad for you. You're in a rough situation. And when I look around, though, the city of Kent has got so much to offer. When you talk about your families, we got some of the best school systems. We got some of the best parks. So it's a wonderful place to live. But the high cost of living is really rough now too. So you're in a tough situation, and I don't know what more to do. I mean, if it was just salary, yeah, we could increase the budget, but that's not the answer here. So I feel for you, Chief. I really do.
Well, thank you. And I'm not. This isn't about being alarmist. I think we have an opportunity if we actually embrace that this is a trend that we were going to need to address.
Yeah.
So,
Chief,
8 officers retiring.
Chief, real quick before you move on, Councilmember Corr has a question.
Councilmember Corr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, my question is about the officers that are leaving the state. Are they moving laterally to other police departments?
Most of them are, yes.
Okay.
Some of them are, I think, two that I can recall are there just done with the business altogether.
They're leaving the profession.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just have a comment to make that I respect, what they have to do for their families, but I think I've seen a lot of people in different professions just kind of moving across the country because pandemic has been hard on them and they want to be closer to their loved ones. Because people want to be close to their families, their parents, and whoever is, they consider their family members. So it's not just one thing we can say the reason people are moving, but, it's multiple. We're complicated people. So we just got to keep that in mind when we're looking at everything. Councilmember Thomas, thank you.
Okay, I'll push through these. Great conversation. The 8 plus the 13 there represents 30% of my current uniform patrol staffing. So obviously, I've got my hiring team going like crazy to shrink that gap, but if we do not recover those numbers, that's what we're talking about at the end of this year. And to show that it's not, to your point, Councilmember Corr, you're right on the money. This is not just a Kent, state of Washington thing, although I will say it is pretty intense here versus some places in the country. The Police Executive Research Forum did a national study survey, and there are your numbers. 5% decrease overall, 18% in voluntary resignations. Okay, this is a profession that has always been a career, so that's a big change. And then 45% in increase in retirements. So it's a national thing, not here, but drawing our attention here as well. And impacts, I think these are pretty obvious. Longer call response times. I am getting increasingly more and more complaints about call response, and I'm very sorry that we're not able to deliver faster than it is not a desire on our part to do faster. We have resources that have been outsized for quite some time, and now it's getting pretty high. Mandated overtime is a reality. Every single person in our patrol division and our investigation division was mandated overtime the last 2 months, every one. Less and less proactivity and preventative community policing. I looked at the numbers of our computer-aided dispatch calls, and the trend that I saw from Valley Communications is that in the last year, we were down 1,500 proactive community-based policing contacts a month. 1,500. That's a lot. And then all of that's going to, in my estimation, will lead to more increased crime. Okay? Talked about that. Before I move on to the crime report, any questions on the retention issue?
Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, so Chief, some of these things are bigger societal issues that are the reasons police are leaving. So what's your plan?
My plan is to make what I've always done, which is try to make this the best place that any police officer can work anywhere. My plan is to show through our actions that these challenges that we're facing, we're going to hang in there with our community in some time. You're going to see a level set, and that it's not as dire maybe as it could be. What's not helpful in the conversation, though, is I can only control what's in my building, in our city. And when there's ongoing talks at the political level, I'm just going to say they're listening. They're listening. They're listening to the defund. They're listening to, a lot of conversations about ongoing. And it's tough, particularly for a department like Kent, because we don't have a lot of the issues you see at the national level, but it doesn't matter that we don't have them. The impacts are the same for us as if they are for Minneapolis PD, and we're not Minneapolis PD. So my thing is to lead us through, make this as the best home it can be for those that are going to stay. I love the people that are leaving dearly, but I have to put my energy in those that are going to remain behind, and that's where I'm going. Okay? Thank you for your question, though. Okay? More not so good news. Crime report. So every year, you guys are aware that the Sheriffs and the Chiefs Association puts out the crime report for Washington. The report is over 100 pages long, But if, for those that our community wants to read the full report, if you go to waspic.org /crime statistic reports, it'll take you there and you can spend hours and hours on the data that they have put together. I'm going to hit some of the highlights, and first we'll start with a statewide trend. So these are 19 versus 2020 numbers. Overall crimes against persons were down 4.7%, which sounds really good, and I'm glad that they were down. The question we all have to ask, and Councilmember Corr, you were on point on this last year, how much of that is underreporting of domestic violence, child neglect, sex abuse, and things where our mandatory reporters were not connected to the vulnerable victims, and so we weren't getting the reports of those crimes. I don't have a way to quantify that, but I do believe that is a huge contributing part, because it certainly did not feel like crimes against persons were down this last year. And if you look at our aggravated assaults, which I'll get to in the next slide, those are off the charts. So those two things don't quite add up. Our murder statewide is up 47%. Manslaughter is up 100%. That doubled. Fraud. I don't normally report on fraud, but this was in the report. It was highlighted. 131%, almost completely attributable to the unemployment fraud we saw last year. Assaults on law enforcement are up just a little bit there. And then hate crimes are down 16.3% in the state. That was a surprise to me. And for those wondering how many we had in 2020, we had 10 reported hate crimes that were investigated, and they were a cross-section of races that were impacted, including Caucasian, which I would have to read those reports to fully understand, but those were the numbers. Okay. So what does Kent look like? Here's the numbers I pulled out from the report that I thought were of most interest. Our murders doubled. We had 9 last year. The only saving grace in that is we solved all 9 homicides last year with 100% clearance rates. Our detectives are phenomenal. Okay, but again, I will tell you that if you look at the history of these individuals that committed these murders, a lot of them had been in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. And it's a very sad thing when the lower level accountability doesn't occur until they kill someone, and then now we're serious about accountability. And from my perspective, that's a little late. Aggravated assault. So the numbers pulled for this are through the NIBR system. It's the National Incident-Based Reporting System. And because it's a national system, they categorize crimes differently in different states. And so it's not an exact one-for-one. Aggravated assault in that number is included any felonious assaults or assaults with weapons. So what you're seeing there predominantly for us is our shootings. That 37.6%, I can assure you most of that is shootings that is up. Simple assaults, again, are down. That's where our DVs would come in. Human trafficking offenses up 137%. Now before we get too down on that, this is going to sound really counterintuitive. It's a good number. Those are proactive arrests by our police officers. Kent leads the region. We have more, and not anything on Seattle, but we have more than double the amount of rescues and enforcement arrests and human trafficking than even Seattle does. We're one of the top in the country, actually. So those numbers are high because that's the number of additional cases and victims rescued by our detectives. Robbery is down 24%. My hypothesis on that is less people out, less opportunity to get robbed. Burglaries are up. Now that's where the numbers are wonky because it's a national system. That includes commercial and residential. I will tell you that our residential burglaries in Kent are down. Our commercial burglaries in Kent are through the roof. Okay, so that's where the two numbers intersect there. And vehicle thefts are up 19%. That is incredibly scary. Because we rank nationally in more auto thefts per capita and not, in a good way. Oh, I should stop for questions there. Any questions on the data?
Any questions?
So nothing new. You guys have heard me say this. The other part of that is the trend is continuing well into this year. So we're more to come. All right, new laws. Mayor Ralph and I made a series of 4 videos. She knows how I love videos. She looks awesome on there, and I dread them every time we do them. But that said, we thought it was important to get the word out on the laws. I want to remind the community where they can find those videos. They do take some time to get through them, but I think it's worth the investment. Again, the overarching message is the Kent Police Department isn't going anywhere. We're going to do our jobs. It's just going to be different. And I need to set expectations of that the outcomes that you're used to seeing might be different than they have been, okay? But we're going to stay, we still love our community. We're going to do our jobs. And then there's that big old bald head of mine. Coffee with the Chief. I want to put in a shameless plug for that. Next Tuesday, come out. It's our first in-person event in months. I really want to see the community. I want to connect as human beings. Let's talk about whatever you want to talk about. Me and my team will be there, and we're very much looking forward to it. So with that, Madam Mayor, I'll take any questions. That completes my report.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Any additional questions for the Chief? All right. I am not seeing any. I think we made through the questions in the presentation. Thank you so much for that information. Very sobering for sure. All right, we will move on in the agenda. Item number 5 is reports. This is an opportunity for everyone sitting up here on the dais to talk about the work that they are doing outside of council meetings and committee of the whole meetings, making sure that Kent's voice is heard and a part of the conversation at a regional level. It's extremely important that we're represented, and I am extremely proud of the work being done to make sure that that occurs. I'm going to start with a couple of updates. Mostly transportation related. Transportation Policy Board met last week. I am now officially the chair of that regional board. Last month, or this month, was my first meeting chairing. So we had a couple of interesting presentations. One of them was around transit safety targets. So the federal government requires that targets be set by our transit agencies around safety. And that's things like injuries, all the way up to fatalities. And so conversation around what that looks like, how those targets are set. Great information on the Puget Sound Regional Council website around that. We also talked about the revenue forecasts and budgeting for infrastructure projects and regional capacity projects. Kent has some on that list. Interesting, a majority of the new projects, 70% of them were focused on local and regional transit and multimodal projects. So we're definitely seeing an increase in those projects that allow people to get around the community and the region, not just in their cars, but bike ped projects and transit projects. Following that meeting, we had the project selection task force. So that is again a regional conversation looking at the criteria used to select regional projects for grant funding. Kent's been very successful in the past in those projects. Very grateful for that funding that comes through the federal government. We continued to talk about equity in that process. So I think this is our 3rd or 4th meeting around equity, building equity into that project selection process. The last transportation update was skateboard, South County Area Transportation Board. We met today, had an update on Sound Transit. A lot of the same information that Council heard in Kelly Peterson's presentation this evening. One of the questions, Councilmember Boyce, I think you asked, was about the second garage. It is an ST2 project, so it's been delayed many, many years. In the proposal by the chair of the Sound Transit Board, it is still in that tier 1, looking at being bumped out to about 2025. We are hearing rumors that there's going to be an alternate proposal coming to the Sound Transit Board, but still feeling fairly confident that those garage projects, Kent, Auburn, and Sumner, will stay in Tier 1. Final update I have is Flood Control District Advisory Board. Kent has a permanent seat on that. I am the vice chair of that committee. Council President Troutner is the alternate. We had our first conversation around budget and funding for our levee projects. No major surprises. The funding that we are expecting and that has already been allocated remains in that budget. And then we also talked a little bit about how the Flood Control District is looking for opportunities for multi-benefit projects. So it's not just the flood control. If there is a flood control need, at the same time, there's ways to weave in both recreation and habitat restoration, something the City of Kent has been very good at for a long time. So no big surprises. I will keep you all updated, and that committee should have its recommendation to the Flood Control District by August. With that, I am going to turn it over to Chief Administrative Officer Derek Matheson.
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, Council. A short report this evening. Yesterday, the Kent Commons Kent Senior Activity Center and ground floors of city buildings reopened to the public, and just want to thank our staff for a very smooth reopening as well as a very smooth return to the office by employees 2 weeks ago on Tuesday, July 6th. The rest of my written report is in the packet. As you know from approving the agenda earlier this evening, we do have an executive session. The topic is to review the performance of a public employee. Expected time is 30 minutes, and there will be no action when we reconvene in open session.
All right, thank you, Derek. Before I turn it over to Council President, one quick COVID update. On Saturday, was able to attend the official closing of the mass vaccination site at Showware Center. Over the 6 months that it was open, over 118,000 doses of vaccine administered out of Showware Center. Extremely proud of that partnership with King County Public Health, but do want to let people know that COVID vaccinations are still readily available in the Kent community. King County Public Health, located up on the East Hill, is providing those, as well as pharmacies, CMAR, Health Point, and most every doctor's office. So still available, just not in the mass vaccination format. All right, Council President Troutner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We had workshop earlier this evening, and just a reminder that if you're interested and you didn't get a chance to watch it, you can go back and watch it. And we had two great presentations. The first one was our quarterly update on Sound Transit, and as you know, we are getting that station across the valley next to the Lowe's and also the one at Star Lake. This will connect Angle Lake to Federal Way, and it is moving along. Lots of great things happening up there. And one of the things I really like about this presentation is there's always really great photos that kind of show that progress. So they've poured the foundation. They're working on the ramps for the parking garage. For the Star Lake station, there's lots of utility work happening and excavation work. And then there's also some information on the traffic impacts and improvements. Lots of good things coming out of this project, including additional turn lanes, through roads, much needed overlays, and wider sidewalks in certain areas. So that project, as you know, will be completed in 2024, and I think we're all looking forward to having that done. We also heard a little bit about the downtown Sounder Garage, which the mayor had mentioned that it's a project that's had many delays. This will bring 534 stalls for parking, bus improvements, and pre-pandemic we saw 1,900 riders a day. 97% of the current parking garage was full, and the lot itself was full. So we know that there is a need for this. As those negotiations continue for this project, we hope that this will be finished in 2025. And then we had a great presentation from our very own Kim Komodo on the public disclosure requests. Her office, which the clerk's office, has 5 staff where they retain records, city documents, agendas, minutes, all of the police video from the body cameras. And in that office, they also train staff on how to deal with those records and the requests. Most of the record requests are open or are available to the public per Initiative 276 that was established in 1972. Records can be written, they can be video, they can be statements. Some of the examples of public records requests are social media posts, documents, emails and texts, public contracts, and then, of course, body cam video. Those records can be requested 24/7 through a portal. They can be made anonymous or in person, also through mail requests, phone, or fax. And when those are received, they're reviewed, and then the office has 5 days to respond, either with the records themselves or an estimate of when those records will be available. So just a few other kind of tidbits on that. There is a fee, and we follow the state's fee schedule. So photo photocopies are 15 cents a copy. We charge 10 cents for scanned records, 5 cents for electronic files, and then 10 cents for transmission in electronic file format. And in 2020, there were 6,824 requests, and $3,896 were collected through those fees. So great information. Again, that both of those presentations are available if you want to go back and take a look. And I also sit on the Regional Transit Committee. We meet tomorrow. I sit on the Regional Law, Safety, and Justice Committee. We meet next Thursday. And with that, I will turn to my colleagues and hear what they have been up to. We will start with Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Madam President. I serve on Kent's Human Services Commission, and at our last meeting, we discussed the equitable grant-making report from the consultant, and they came up with 6 pillars or recommendations and strategies for our grant-making process to ensure it's more equitable. They include develop a shorter, more accessible, easier to understand application. Oh, and human services strategic plan that's easier to read. They encourage authentic engagement that builds trust and spreads awareness. So they're thinking of having more culturally specific methods of meeting with community partners. Another thing is culturally relevant participation-based technical assistance and culturally dynamic application process. So things like translating the application, but that also comes with being able to read those translated applications. One of the things that everyone on the committee is really excited about was this, the reboot of our website to make it easier for people to navigate and add a calendar that will include all the steps to the application process and timeline so it's easier for people to navigate. And I just want to say that I'm really proud of our human services staff and the people on the commission. They're really trying to work hard to ensure that that our funds are spent and given out in an equitable way. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Michaud. Councilmember Kaur.
Thank you. I serve as the chair for Puget Sound Clean Air Agency Advisory Council. And we had our meeting on the 14th, and we talked about our strategic planning, basically most of the meeting. But we also had a presentation on wildfires. And as we know, this is the season. So please be careful. And if there's, you can check the air quality actually on the website. I guess I can just say that name or URL for the website is map.pscleanair.org, and it gives you the map of the whole state, and it tells you the quality if it's green or yellow or orange or red, and you can check the air quality. I also attended K4C Curriculum Design Lab on July 13th, which is focused on climate change, civic engagement, and equity, and it was a group of middle and high school students and teachers, and a lot of them from our Kent school district, and it was amazing to hear the conversations they are having and the plans they have for the future and how they want to engage their peers into more civic engagement, climate change, sustainability. It was amazing to be part of that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kaur. Councilmember Larmer.
Thank you, Council President. I sit on the King County Aging and Disabilities Advisory Council, and we met last week. 2 topics on the agenda. The first one was brought forward by the Advocacy Committee regarding the Long-Term Care Trust Act that was passed a couple years ago. There's quite a bit of lobbying taking place from the insurance the insurance lobbyists or actively, I guess, for lack of a better word, attacking the act. And so the Advocacy Committee was talking about some steps and, letter of support coming from Aging and Disability Council. So the second topic that we discussed was the area plan, the area aging, let me get the proper title here, the area plan for 2020 to 2023 for Sale King County. And this is a federal plan that has 4 different pillars that drives how aging and disability services are going to be both funded and the programmatic distribution of these different services throughout the region. It happens every 4 years. Every 2 years, we have the opportunity to update it. And so this is the point we're at right now in the process, and it was decided that we'll be adding a fifth pillar to this, and that will be response to COVID and pandemics. So currently, the plan focuses on supporting healthy aging, supporting enhanced well-being during aging, maximizing independence, and partnering with Native tribes. And we will, like I said, we'll be adding the fifth one, which is area response plan to pandemics. So, and then I also sit on the Affordable Housing Committee for King County, and we'll be meeting tomorrow. So I'll have that update next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Larmer. Councilmember Boyce.
Thank you, Madam President. I sit on the Pitt Vice Chair Committee. We had a rather unusual meeting. First of all, the shorter staff, and then one of the staff member that was going to give the presentation got sick that night. So Deanna and Brian, bless their soul, they tried to manage to get through the presentation. We also spent a lot of time just doing a round robin. One thing we were trying to do with PIC is just making sure everybody feel like they have a voice. Because sometimes you have people who been there for quite some time and tendency to talk more. So we're just trying to find ways to, and that's not me, Madam Mayor. We'll try to find ways to make sure everybody feel like they are part of the team and they can speak and so on. I would say that we are going to give staff the month of August off, so I won't have an August report. And like I said, there's shorter staff, and Deanna's working hard trying to fill her staff. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyce. Councilmember Thomas.
You sure that wasn't Red Robin instead of Round Robin? Thank you, Madam President. I serve on the Regional Fire Authority for Kent, et cetera. Anyway, along with President Troutner and Councilmember Boyce, and we have a very special announcement for all of you, and that is that we are going to have an open house at the fire station this Saturday from 10 to 1 at Station 74. Now, Station 74 is the main location on 116th. You can't miss it. So if you get a chance, come look over the engines. There's a beautiful new ladder truck there. It's going to be great. My report last month was a very brief meeting, and next meeting will be tomorrow night at 5:30. We're still going to be on Zoom tomorrow, and for information on how to make contact with that, you can call 253-856-4300, 4300. So next month, we've got 2 scheduled meetings, August 2nd and August 16th. That locations there will be determined later. That's all I have, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas. Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I serve on the Mental Illness and Drug Dependency Advisory Committee, MID, and we will be meeting next week. So that meeting is coming up. We have KCD, King Conservation District, which I chair, and we have been interviewing for the executive director position. Any of you, so far they've gone through interviews with the hiring committee, which I'm part of, with the staff, and with the advisory committee. So any of you who want to hear the interviews, those are recorded, and so you can go to the website, KCD's website, kingcd.org, and you can hear those for yourself. All of that information is being compiled, and next week, all of our interviews, notes taken, all of that sort of stuff goes to the board, who will make that hiring decision. So take this week if you want, and be sure to give your input. And there are the three finalists are who you'll be listening to. And then comes the Arts Commission. Arts Commission, as usual, has been busy. We had, at the last meeting, we had some of our finalists who are the ones who are designing the next round of traffic signal boxes. They showed us some of their artwork. Those were approved, and so we will be getting new artwork for the traffic signal boxes, plus one additional that is going to be down on Meeker, thanks to to the Economic Development Department. And the Centennial Arts Gallery, which is and the Centennial Building, but lots of other things there, but there is a free art gallery there. So on the first floor, all sorts of art is there. We have 2 artists whose work is being displayed. So if you're on your lunch or you have extra time or you're down there paying your bills, take a walk through and check out the art there. Council President Troutner mentioned the concerts. So we had over 300 people for the concert on Wednesday, which is great if you have kids. Great place to take your kids. And then on Thursday, I think it was about 450 people up at Lake Meridian. So remember, Wednesdays and Thursdays, free entertainment that is very high quality, different types of music. Will be showcased for the kids. They have all sorts of music and entertainment. So not strictly music, but a lot of good times for them. With the traffic signal boxes, one thing I didn't mention is that we have an eclectic range of what you'll be seeing on those boxes. So there's going to be Native American art, there's going to be animals, people, nature scenes, so all sorts of good stuff coming to join the good stuff that we already have. I believe that is all I wanted to report on that part, but I had 2 things I wanted to add, Madam Mayor. You mentioned that ShoWare is open. Thank you very much, because that means that it is ours again. So the good work with the vaccines is still continuing, but we get to use it again. So it wasn't ours basically during that time. So be sure to check your entertainment schedules, because there's going to be hockey, there's going to be different trade shows, different kinds of entertainment. So another place for you to go. And then our reader boards. If you haven't seen them, the 2 reader boards are active and working by our traffic circle. Willis and Forth, and the good thing about that is we will be able to deliver messages to the public in a variety of different languages. So especially important for safety concerns. When there's a message that we need to get out, we can make sure that we have it in languages that people will understand as they're driving by. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Fincher, and thank you to all of you. Madam Mayor, that ends our report.
All right. Thank you, Council President. We will move on in the agenda. Item number 6 is a public hearing. We do not have one this evening. Item number 7 is public comment. Public comment period is the opportunity for members of the public to speak to the council or mayor on issues that relate, issues of business that relate to, or issues that relate to the business of the City Council that they will be considering at this meeting, or things that you would like to be considered. Comments that do not relate to the business of the city are not permitted. And additionally, the state of Washington prohibits people from using the public comment period to support or oppose ballot measures or candidates for office. Kim, do we have speakers signed up this evening?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have 2 people signed up to speak tonight. TJ Peterson is going to speak on tenant protections, followed by Cliff Cawthon, who is going to speak on tenant protections.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Just a reminder, if you could state your name and city of residence for the record, and you do have 3 minutes.
My name's TJ. I'm a renter in Kent, and I'd like to talk about tenant protections. We have the governor's moratorium on evictions is going to be ending here in a couple of months. I'm not asking for a moratorium. I'm asking for some tenant protections to maybe level the playing field between tenants and some of the landlords in this city. In the Seattle Times, July 14th, Marina Hansen, our rock star of a manager of a human services department, says, Kent does not have the nonprofit infrastructure because the need is so great. Resources go to crisis response and not long-term economic resilience. This has been kind of an ongoing thing in Kent. Maju Corsi, I probably butchered the lady's name. She's the Economic Stability Director at the Multi-Service Center. These are systemic issues that are being left to nonprofits. The Seattle Times article was talking about the wave of homelessness that's coming to South King County because of the precarious conditions of the tenants. This is a study, the urban displacement study out of Berkeley. It was in the front page of the Seattle Times a week ago. Kent Reporter. talks about the King County ordinance. I feel that levels the playing field when people are looking for apartments. It levels the playing field, so when people go to apply for an apartment, they don't have to figure out which rules and how much of a deposit each different apartment is going to be. Thanks to the great work of Haley Bonsteel at the Economic Development, she talks about the stigma to renters in this city. That is something that's been systemic in this city for a long time, at least 20 years. The fact that this is being left up to nonprofits, give the renters the tools to negotiate when they need to move an apartment. Give them the protections from unjust fees. Make it consistent across King County. Kent's not prepared for the homeless wave. The tenant protections and the landlords, I don't even believe that they're licensed in this city. How many landlords does this city actually have that live in Kent, that own rentals in Kent? How many people in Kent rent? Over 60, 70,000 people. This is a majority of your constituents, mayor, council. I'd like to also maybe bring up a little small thing. When you're discussing this, Pat talked about conflict of interest. Is there any council members up there that own rentals? Are there any council members that have LLCs that are involved in property management? Is that a conflict of interest? I don't know, because there's money on the table for this kind of thing. I want to close by thanking you for your legislative updates with the chief. Great information on the new legislation. I would love to ask you to talk about the Martin versus Boise decision. When it comes to homelessness, Auburn has provided statutes and changed their policies and has a shelter. Kent has nobody, no place for people to go. People who are, choices are so limited, they're living outside, need protections from the city. Seriously, this is a major crisis. And I thank you so much for your time. I really think this is something that needs to be addressed. I'm asking for a vote from my council.
Okay, if I can
Let
get
me
you
know
to,
who's
if I can get you to
where
wrap
on
up.
this tenant protections and get it on the mayor's desk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi. Anyway, hey, how you doing? So my name is Clifford, or Cliff Cawthon for short. I am a homeowner in the East Hill neighborhood, and I don't know if the clock has started yet. Okay, there you go. There you go. Hi. So again, for the record, my name's Clifford, or Cliff Cawthon. I'm a homeowner in the East Hill neighborhood, and I am a teacher part-time at Bellevue College, and also I work for a Sightline Institute as a pro-housing coalition strategy manager. And the reason why I want to come here, and talk to you today is because I'm really concerned about public safety. Also, I just want to say, while I'm thinking about it right now, I'm really encouraged and excited to hear you guys talk about the new light rail station. I actually worked on that campaign to put the to win funding for the new light rails. So I'm really encouraged, and I want to thank all of you for contributing to the process after the campaign, after the fact. So anyway, to be short, that when it comes to domestic violence, when it comes to the rise in property crimes that the chief reported, when it comes to the various public safety issues, as a homeowner, as a resident, someone who's worked in the area, that I've seen housing insecurity at the root of it. And that's why I would kindly encourage all of you to adopt the King County Tenant Protections that were adopted in late June, earlier just a little while ago, including things such as prohibiting rent hikes in unsafe or unavailable housing, allowing tenants to adjust rent due date if they live on a fixed income, as well as adding protections against prohibiting landlords from just using Social Security numbers or pre-rental screenings. All these things, I'm looking at the King County website right now, and these strengthen the just cause legislation that was recently passed in a historic legislative session by the same people that I've seen this council work with time and time again to push legislation on the state level to help and to support the residents of Kent to make sure that we can all thrive. So I would encourage you and kindly encourage you to basically be a partner in this and to make sure that we can pass this kind of meaningful stuff on a local level. Because again, this applies for King County, so just unincorporated areas. So there are many renters here in Kent. Folks less fortunate than myself, many folks in the community, many folks I talk to every single day that wants the eviction moratorium, and even during this eviction moratorium, as it stands right now, that they're facing these issues. And that leads to a number of these cases. Because if we care, we have to take action. It's our responsibility, it's our privilege, so it's our duty. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim, is that it for speakers?
I have no one else signed up to speak.
All right. Thank you very much. Item number 8 on the agenda is the consent calendar. This is a compilation of work that the council has done over the last several weeks at the Committee of the Whole. These items have been presented on and discussed and passed out of Committee of the Whole without controversy. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to approve consent calendar items A through E.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Item number 9 is other business. We do not have any this evening. We do, however, have a bid. Item number 10, we've got the 4th Avenue and Willis Street landscape bid. And joining us this evening is Terry Youngman. Good evening, Terry.
Good evening, Madam President, or Madam Mayor, Council President, council members. Rehearsed that in my head at least a half a dozen times. Still couldn't. I'm here tonight to present the 4th and Willis Landscape Contract Award. We're very happy to bring this item forward to round out the improvements that started with the roundabout project. This is an extension of the design that was started with that project, and it just takes it into the 2 greenways that are anchored on the north and south of Willis Street. So the project will consist of a multi-use trail, some node areas, pathways on the north and the south. On the north side, it will be a concrete multimodal trail for bikes and pedestrians. On the south, it will be a compacted gravel trail, so a bit more natural. It also includes landscaping, so full irrigation system, tree plantings, and general landscape enhancements with some stormwater improvements as well. So like I said, this is consistent with the original concept plan that was put forward when we first had the roundabout project was first started. And this just continues that same design aesthetic. The engineer's estimate for the project was between $950,000 and $1.2 million, and we're happy to report that we received 3 bids for the project. The apparent low bidder, whenever the bids were opened, was OMA Construction out of Maple Valley. Their bid amount was $1,230,999.47. That included both Schedules A and Schedule B. And in our review of the bid package, they were found to be the lowest responsible bidder. So it is my recommendation that we move to award this contract to OMA Construction, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, thanks, Terry. Any questions? All right, I'm not seeing any, so a motion would be in order.
Madam Mayor, I move to award the 4th Avenue and Willis Street landscape project to OMA Construction in the amount of $1,230,999.47, including Washington State sales tax, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney and parks director.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. That brings us to item number 11 on our agenda. That is the added item this evening of executive session. We are anticipating about 30 minutes. Once council reconvenes, there will be no action taken. We will be just adjourning the meeting at that point. So if I could ask everyone in council chambers that is not relating to this topic to please excuse themselves, and our viewing public will go to a lovely screen that says executive session in progress. Thank you.